Hello, this is Gideon Emery, a.k.a. Balthier from Final Fantasy XII, telling you you're listening to the Raw Dogs podcast, which is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network. And from this leading man, may you be the leading man in your own lives. Tune in, enjoy, farewell.
We're back.
This is the Raw Dogs, and at this point, you've probably beaten the remake. I'm guessing a lot of people have beaten the remake at this point, because this is coming out almost 2 weeks after that. I hope you all loved it. I hope you are as happy as I'm predicting we will be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're the Raw Dogs. This is part 2. This one is taking place after Midgar, and we're going to also just ramble a lot about just general feelings and the production and everything else. What's your name, sir?
My name is Dylan. My friends call me Big Tex.
Big Tex.
And we are going to be going deep.
We go deep and we go raw.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk a lot about this game. Seminal game. If you didn't listen to the first one, I would actually suggest doing it.
Just listen to every podcast that we've done and like and subscribe. Leave a review while you're at it, too. I am wearing a dress that is both soft and shimmers. I have my deodorant. Mm-hmm. And I have makeup applied, so I know that I'm going to be the belle of the ball today.
Bitch, your makeup is on point.
Thank you. Thank you. Finally, someone with taste. Dylan, where do you want to start off on the whole mess of everything we could talk about?
They just completed Final Fantasy VI, which for Americans is Final Fantasy III.
Which wasn't as big in America as they were hoping it was going to be. No one had really cracked the RPG code for the American market yet.
Turns out a lot of the solution is just advertising well.
In a big fucking way. Advertising on NFL.
Yep.
That was part of it. The advertising campaign for Final Fantasy VII was huge.
Yes.
Right. Final Fantasy VI was the one that just came out.
For many people, this is their favorite Final Fantasy. And in my headcanon, it's really close to being number one. There are a few that constantly duke it out. But 6 is fantastic. It is the last 2D Final Fantasy mainline title.
I think a lot of what determines what your favorite Final Fantasy is going to be is what your first one that you played is. Mm-hmm. That's why
7 is so big, yeah.
But they were considering, they went right into their production for 7 right away. Mm-hmm. Sakaguchi was envisioning New York City, Detective Joe.
Yeah, Detective Joe. He argues against that.
He is confused, I think, on a lot of this.
So they wanted to make more of like a noir setting?
Yeah, a New York noir setting, which some of that, does have Final Fantasy VII still has a steampunk vibe to it.
And I would even argue that it does have a lot of noir writing, just the way characters talk, the archetypes they inhabit. And well, at the time they were also trying to develop for a new system.
They weren't sure what system. Originally they wanted to do it for the new Nintendo.
Because that was an obvious choice.
You can see that they even do have some 2D mock-ups. If you look into the Ultimania, where they have 2D versions of Final Fantasy VII, they were just trying some things out.
Yeah.
They did a test. They got those SIGGRAPH machines.
They did a battle from Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, they did a FF6 battle.
It looks pretty good.
I haven't watched the gameplay. I'm surprised I haven't, but
it's a game in so far as they presented it to you. It's like
it's a functioning battle.
Yeah, but nobody's really playing it. So it's like gameplay in the same way that trailers released now are showing you actual game footage, but they can lie. And
I think you could actually play it.
Could you?
I think they actually had like a functioning battle, because I've heard that even part of the summoning, something that they had back then, was you actually had to like draw on the screen.
Oh, really? I didn't read any of that. All I know is that you were 3 characters. One was Terra, then there was Locke, and Shadow. And they were facing just a big enemy. It kind of showed running animations. It kind of showed dynamic kind of shifts in graphics.
It included a gestural interface with Z's and O's drawn by characters for spells and summons. Yeah, they made a tech demo, so they were working on a lot of this stuff. Then Chrono Trigger was falling behind, so much of the team got pulled over to work on Chrono Trigger, which, fuck, that game.
If I got to count Chrono Trigger as a Final Fantasy game, it would probably be number one. I think Chrono Trigger is a near perfect video game.
I agree.
Especially that DS remake.
And the fact that it has so many different moving parts and ending possibilities.
Storytelling wise, just action wise, mechanics wise.
Yeah, that's much of the Final Fantasy VII team. This is what they worked on just before this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think it really primed them. Chrono Trigger has a really great isometric view, and it's really dynamic. Battles start instantly, and it's very tactical. Like, it's based on character positions and enemy positions. One of the things they were worried about, it's hard to think of today, but even Nintendo was afraid to make a 3D game because they didn't know how Mario was going to act in 3D space, and they knew that older fans were not going to have a fun time getting used to controlling a 3D polygonal figure.
It's interesting that even though they were afraid, that they fucking crushed it so hard, though, still.
It's amazing when you think about it. When you talk about Dragon Quest in this era, they stuck 2D. Dragon Quest VII was 2D. That was their PlayStation release.
Okay. When did they make their first 3D jump then?
That was actually 8 for the PS2.
The PS2?
Yep.
Yeah, but for what Square wanted to make for Final Fantasy VII, they decided we need to do the future, we need to do 3D, and they went to Nintendo and they said, this isn't going to work.
Cartridge. It's just the fact that they were on cartridges.
And Nintendo 64 was like, well, we've got this double D peripheral coming out. Like, we already got double Ds. Have you seen Tifa? Shit.
Yep, the Nintendo disk drive, which was going to be an attachment for the N64. Just so dumb.
And they needed to have lengthy cutscenes, large amounts of content. It simply would not have been possible on the cartridge. Yoshinori Kitase said it wasn't really officially in development for Nintendo 64. It was more experimenting with the hardware. It was a single room segregated from everyone else. Very few people knew about it. The first thing they created was the Behemoth model, and it was about 2,000 polygons for the 64. Frame rate was too low. They didn't spend too much time before they're like, we got to do something else.
Fun fact about most of the development of all Final Fantasies, the first 3D model they usually make is the Behemoth.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's a very iconic monster.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, this little isolated time frame where Nintendo and Sony, they were working together. If Nintendo had paired up with Sony, the entire landscape of video games would look very different these days. But
can you even imagine?
With cartridges, they're able to keep a stronger lock on what content's going out. They're able to make more money off of them, and they thought that was the better way to go. They turned out that they were quite wrong.
Yeah.
And I know Sony did some courting as well, just sending Square Enix like some chocolates, like, what's up, dude? Like, we should hang out sometime. I've heard that they were cut a pretty good deal. Tomoyuki Takeuchi, the president and CFO, said Sony basically gave us the best deal they were going to give to any publisher, and they did a lot of public relations work and marketing on their dime. He also says, I can't talk about the details, but one thing is that Sony went very low on their per unit royalty. I think Sony was aware that they needed to have a blockbuster. They needed, they had a cannon. What did they say? Final Fantasy VII is to you what headlights are to a deer or something like that. I was like, damn, that's good advertising.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, Sony knew that they needed to have something that could showcase the power of its system. And Squaresoft was definitely the ones to go for. Something that really pissed Nintendo off was that Squaresoft was also going to other publishers and producers like, you guys, come over here. Like, come to Sony.
Oh, they were...
Because, I mean, at that point, they wanted the PlayStation to do better because that's looking out for their own interests. But
yeah.
So Nomura, I like this little anecdote. He was walking down the hall one day and Sakaguchi-san stopped him and said, hey,
jacket.
He's like, hey, look at this. And it was a jumper jacket with a PlayStation logo. And that's how he found out they were going to another system.
I mean, everyone was still trying to figure stuff out. They had to protect their own. I completely understand.
I would have done the same.
I mean, Nintendo, they were the kings of what they were doing just because they almost had a monopoly on the entire video games industry at this point. I mean, Sony was the newcomer. So the fact that there was a new competitor, it put Nintendo on their heels. I think it was appropriate because if they had kept letting Nintendo make all the decisions in video gaming, I can't imagine what kind of weird stuff we would have right now.
The PlayStation 1 was a huge console in my childhood. I remember Crash Bandicoots and Final Fantasy Tactics and Symphony of the Night. Man, those are some good times. Those first couple of years with the PlayStation were just amazing. And 64 seemed like it was Nintendo not growing up to an extent.
I mean, they had the worst controller.
Sony PlayStation, it felt like an adult piece of entertainment equipment.
Yeah.
It felt like something that you want to show off next to your sound bar or whatever your receiver is. The Nintendo 64 looks like a nice toy to put in a kid's room.
Yeah.
Not to say the games aren't great, but it had a different feel to it.
It was light. It was weird. I loved the N64, obviously. I wasn't making any real choices for myself at this age on what I was getting. But the PlayStation, it definitely felt like, oh, that's too cool for me. It's this like sleek gray. There's analog sticks.
I haven't even kissed a girl yet.
No, definitely not.
And then you see like Tifa on there. You're like, I'm not ready for that,
It's
that
like,
system
oh, no,
yet.
too much woman.
So allegedly, Nintendo wouldn't talk with Sony for about 4 to 5 years afterwards. I've also heard like 10 years they weren't allowed into Nintendo's offices.
Yeah.
Sakaguchi has a quote where he's like, oh, it was fine. They said it was okay. No one was mad. He has this long response about how everyone is cool and happy. And then Hiroshima Kawai, the character programmer, said, yeah, he's just being really PC on that one. He's like, Nintendo pretty much said, if you're leaving us, don't come back.
Oh, my God. Well, it literally was about 5 years, because once you get to like the Game Boy Advance era, Square just started releasing stuff on that pretty quickly. I have a lot of Square produced Game Boy Advance games. So
yeah,
like they did a lot of remakes like Final Fantasy 4, 5, 6. Those were all around that time. It didn't take them that long. I think they eventually realized give the people what they want. Especially after when the GameCube came out and they were no longer like kings of the industry.
Yeah, I love the GameCube.
I do too. One of the best controllers ever made.
Essentially, they told Sony that you need to sell 3 million units of this game for it to be profitable for us.
Yep.
It was in development for a little more than a year. I don't know if there was much issues. I know that they invested a lot of money into getting all of the proper like SIGGRAPH machines, the right equipment that they could do
right.
The new 3D stuff that was brand new to everybody. They had to bolster their team. Went from 30 to 40 people to like 150.
Which was huge at the time. That is a huge development. It's not like it is now.
And Sakaguchi, he was the king back then. He wasn't the president, but everyone listened to him like he was in charge. And they even called him king. And I love that in that 500 Years Later book, he mentions
king.
He mentions like, it's not because I was the king, it's just because I drink a lot of champagne.
It's like, what does that even mean, dude? It's like, oh, I might have heard that at some point. It's like he knows what a boss he is.
He was such a boss back in the day. And he saw the vice president of game production, Steve Gray. He saw him creating a schedule and a budget for Parasite Eve. And he went up to him and was like, why would you do that? What is this for? You don't need to make a budget.
It's yours.
The Gooch, man, that guy was in charge. $40 million went into game development. About $10 million was put from that into computer graphics. Some would say even up to $21 million was spent on computer graphics.
That makes sense.
Memory available on the PlayStation 1 is about 2 megabytes. They have Nobuo Uematsu.
Yes. Famed composer of the entire Final Fantasy series up until this point, as well as Chrono Trigger.
I've seen one of his concerts live, and it was one of the first ones that he wasn't at because he had health issues coming.
Oh.
But it was still just fantastic seeing that done by a live orchestra. And they even did the opera. They've composed like an extended version of the opera with vocals and everything.
I believe the song now is called Darkness and Starlight.
Maybe. But it was super cool seeing that all done live. Uematsu's the shit. He tried to do some more with vocal tracks here in FF7, but
he tried and he did his best, and it still sounds okay.
Well, he pulled back quite a bit because it would make loading longer. Yeah, he's like, didn't want to risk it.
Well, it's very entertaining to me how at this time composers were so integral to the entire development process, because he was talking about how at any given moment, especially during these FMV sequences, the machine would be running so heavy that he would have to like tone down his songs for certain parts just because there wouldn't be enough space to run the music and also what was going on screen at the exact same time. I found that really fascinating. These days you can just insert tracks. It doesn't really matter. But back then it was really using the economy of what you were making and pushing it to its absolute limits. How early on in like a generation of hardware, games they'll be all right and they'll kind of look like the generation before it. But those last few games that get produced for that system You can hear your PS4 whirring, and buzzing, and like making noises it shouldn't be making.
And even look at Final Fantasy VII compared to Final Fantasy IX, just how much more they figured out about how to get things out of that PS1.
7 to 8?
Yeah.
7 to 8.
7 to 8. Yeah.
8, especially when you talk about going from like Cloud as like little blocky weird man to Squall, which is just a jumble of pixels, but he still looks like a character moving on screen. It is revolutionary.
I do appreciate Sakaguchi's humor. So, in FF8, your characters all just run behind you. Mm-hmm. In 7, they merge into each other.
Yeah.
He had wrote like a little joke scene where Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse try to walk into each other and they can't do it.
Oh, that would have been so cute.
And they're like, I guess we're not strong enough yet.
That is cute.
It was cool for Uematsu. He was, before, composing on the little SNES chip, he was able to really bring in a lot more instrumentation. And you can tell that dude does have, a rock opera sensibility to him. Yeah. He was inspired by, like Rush and some other
prog rock,
Yeah. And you can hear it, like Genova's
Emerson,
theme.
Lake and Palmer, yeah.
Oh, I love the soundtrack to this because it's steampunk. It's just got so much energy to it and so much character.
Well, and especially with what they were dealing with, they were actually able to produce more genre tones. Like in a lot of older Final Fantasies, it's mostly like the melody that's carrying it, and maybe you can kind of make it sound like a trumpet or make it sound like jazz. But now you could actually like make it feel the instruments are actually playing, and I think that is like the game changer. I mean, even when you think about the songs playing in Midgar, kind of the noir style, like slow, like jazzy beats to like Cosmo Canyon.
Oh, it's so good. And I think that the soundtrack is aged well too. As far as, even the blocky characters, they have a charm to them. As a product of its time, it just works. And I love how it comes together. There was actually more to the Honeybee Inn. There's other rooms that were created that you can see some pictures of. Mm-hmm. And there's a song that was for like the lobby part of the Honeybee Inn, which you don't hear anywhere else. But
I've never heard it.
The song exists. We'll put it in right here so you can have a listen to that. All right, so we're going to crack open a beer here because we are a podcast about video games and beer.
Absolutely.
This is from my favorite brewery in Milwaukee. And I'm not just saying that because I work there, but this is from Eagle Park. This is Slush, their mango and prickly pear over-fruited sour ale. It said roll this can prior to opening. I forgot to do that, so we're going to slosh it around in the glasses.
Okay, give it a swirly. Get the bouquet out. Eagle Park is fantastic. I don't work there, so I can say that, and it seems more genuine. They had some of my favorite beers from last year. We also reviewed a lot of them on the Dogcast.
We drink a lot of them, yeah. Artistic direction. I love the 2D backgrounds with the 3D characters.
Yes.
We talked about that briefly before.
But it still feels 3D, which is important.
I don't care for the backgrounds in FF8 as much.
Really?
I don't know, because isn't FF8 like a lot of its actual models and everything?
It depends. Some of it's really integrated and some of it isn't, but there are a lot more moving parts in 8.
The environment has so much character to it, and there's so many little things in houses. It's just, I love that they're able to populate the world with so much because it's just, hand-drawn 2D backgrounds.
Well, in the last cast, I described them as little play sets. And they really do feel like little play sets.
Mm-hmm. I would love to have some of them made into little play sets, like little Lego sets.
With Cloud looking like Cloud.
They're always trying to release H.R. Geiger level models of things like, no, give me the blocky shit.
That would be cool.
Yep, and if you hit a button, it squats.
I just want the gym from Wall Market.
That's a fucking set right there.
Yeah, I agree.
No, Honeybee Inn play set with characters that'll go in the working hot tub. You hit a button and the hot tub actually bubbles and stuff.
Well, playing 10 now, like this philosophy, they kept this. They kept this kind of like flat background with a character moving through it pretty much until like 12.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 technically, but let's not count the MMOs.
The onlines, they get their own category. They deserve their own discussion.
Yeah, but I mean, when we argue, I'm going to have to argue for 14.
Tom's bringing on one of his buddies who's a big Final Fantasy guy, so maybe you'll have a cohort there.
Maybe. It's in my top 10, so.
There are over 40 minutes of CG scenes, computer-generated cutscenes in FF7. and 2 weeks were required for 10 seconds worth of like
that's animation. That's appropriate.
The commercials for this game that they'd be playing at NFL. They wouldn't show the blocky guy.
No, they
would show Cloud, and it says like a tale of betrayal. Well, and it shows all the cool stuff, just like Cloud riding a motorcycle down the stairs.
Yeah,
those cutscenes back in the day blew me away.
God.
Blew me away.
And then the way they integrate the models into it, and then they shift perspective. And what is it like? When you wake up in the room after the whole thing with Cloud in your Tifa, and then Barret opens up the window even, then the camera shifts in,
yeah.
The perspective is still right, and then it forces you to look up at Meteor. Mm-hmm. Just the way they integrated it, even in something like 10, like they'll have your character in the models doing what they're doing, and then you'll feel the cut, mm-hmm. You'll feel the edit, and then it will be the scene. And those ones, it was immediately just like a flow, which I thought was beautiful.
Yeah. Did you know that Midgar partially was inspired by the pizza that someone was eating when they were like designing it?
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, that's what Naora said. Much like Pac-Man, Midgar was designed from a pizza.
Can you think of anything in fiction around this time or earlier that had that kind of weirdly thought out kind of flair to it? Me personally, this being like my introduction to really cool like sci-fi concepts, kind of off the wall, kind of goofy, but still like tangible. I had never seen anything like Final Fantasy VII in terms of anything. Nothing was designed that way before. It felt wholly original.
It was so new, and I wasn't playing a lot of RPGs before this. Mm-hmm. As far as, a 3D game, a 3D RPG, an epic story, it tried to do some pretty grandiose, like it reached very far with what they were attempting to do. And, I think that they actually accomplished it most of the time.
Yeah.
They went big. And that's something I do admire about Squaresoft. They're like, this is every game. They're like, this is the most important game you're ever going to make. Like, we've done that the last 3 games. Like, no, this time though.
And then they made Final Fantasy 13.
They gave up at some point. They lost the gooch.
They lost the gooch for a pretty significant reason.
Turns out the king should not be given full control.
No. I would love to actually be in the room to see the pitch meeting for Spirits Within. Just to see people in the room going like...
They're like, it's the gooch.
Whatever you say, dude.
Are you going to include a button to skip the entire 2-hour cutscene? Because this sounds boring as shit.
Well, it's funny because he chose a story that if you want to make a Final Fantasy movie, why don't you make it like Final Fantasy? And another thing, the march of time and how quickly their CG was improving. Advent Children came out 4 years after that.
Well, and they did something smart.
Such a marked improvement.
Because instead of making an obscure science fiction film that's not related to Final Fantasy almost at all, they're like, let's just take our most popular characters and make a fucking movie with them. Mm-hmm. So there's some big names for Final Fantasy VII. Everyone likes to talk about Hironobu Sakaguchi, the producer, kind of broadly in charge of everything. It was him that wanted to explore what happens after you die, which is why they wanted to have like characters that...
He recently had lost his mother, right?
Correct, yeah. He gets a lot of the credit, but as far as Final Fantasy VII goes, there's also 3 other names that are incredibly important to mention. Yoshinori Kitase was the director. Mm-hmm. He was chosen by Sakaguchi because he had studied film and made several short films and give it a more cinematic flair. He directed it. Tetsuya Nomura, character designer. He moved up in the company pretty fast.
Well, they recognized his value pretty quickly because a lot of even characters from Chrono Trigger and 6 have some very Tetsuya Nomura looks to them.
Yeah, he created Setzer and Shadow for 6.
And Setzer's cool as fuck.
And Nomura, I think he's just one of those guys that he knows where to be and what to say to get people's attention. Like, he gets on an elevator and Kingdom Hearts happens.
I have such a love-hate relationship with him.
Big time.
I love his belts. I love his zippers.
Donald Duck has the best zippers.
He's got zippers. He's got like 5 zippers on his hat.
Right.
Allie's been playing Kingdom Hearts 3, and I just keep talking like Goofy, and I can't stop sometimes. I'll be like, Ellie, you gotta clean the cat litter.
Kingdom Hearts, man. I looked at the DLC. It's still expensive.
Remind.
Fuck you.
Well, do you know how it ends?
No, I don't care.
It's actually wild. So, Verum Rex, the video game?
Yep.
and how it kind of like reminds you of Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah.
Versus 13.
Is it going to be a real game?
The character's name is Yozora now. You fight him, and then you get crystallized, like in Final Fantasy 13. Like, you know, when you fulfill like your Lassie Falsi type.
No, because I didn't
bullshit.
finish that fucking game.
Sora gets frozen, and Yozora's like, I'm here to protect everyone. And then it proceeds to give you a cutscene that is the trailer for Final Fantasy Versus 13.
So they are making Versus 13. Tetsuya Nomura. Yes. So yeah, this was one of his first big opportunities, and they just, be having water cooler talk, and they just like, we should do this with this character. And he moved up pretty quick as the main character designer, and then he, continued his trajectory at Square and just got bigger and bigger.
Amano did do character concepts.
Not for 7, though.
He did some illustrating for it.
After the fact.
Yeah, I know.
I think someone who, his name doesn't get talked about a lot, and it turns out that he is so integral to Final Fantasy, and it's Kazushige Nojima. When I realized, I was looking at the work he's done, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't think he did 12 or 13. I think he did 15. He did the Kingdom Hearts series. And then I was thinking, well, Crisis Core is great, and it fits into the universe. And, of course, he was involved there. And then I knew, before I looked, I'm like, he's not involved in Dirge of Cerberus. There's no fucking way. Nope. He got a special thanks.
Well, their problem was just making it almost a pure shooter. If they had gone like the Devil May Cry route, they would have been right on the money.
But yeah, Nojima, and then he also wrote the novellas. Like, he is the guy who's crafting the beat by beat. Some of the big story moments, are going to be helps created from Kitase and Nomura and Sakaguchi, but Nojima is the one day by day writing the scenes out. Sakaguchi envisioned a group of rebels being pursued by a detective who are trying to blow up a megalopolis. He kind of had that broad story beat.
Yeah, I do recall that.
And that sticks pretty close to there. The Gooch gives most credit to Kitase and Nomura for the big story beats. Kitase himself didn't learn that Cloud's memories were Zack's until the end of the game's development.
Really?
I think that even they didn't know what was going on a lot of the times.
Well, it kind of makes sense when you see it from... Because a lot of that stuff, a lot of the big story stuff, especially in these RPGs, a lot of that gets done right at the end.
The international version, the one that we got here in America, it had things such as, Ruby Weapon and Emerald Weapon, but also that entire scene in Nibelheim Mansion that you get on Disc 3 when you go back, where you see the flashback of Zack getting Cloud out of there. That wasn't in the original at all. Yeah,
that was a pretty necessary step because... there would be 4 missing years, and nobody really explained to you what happened in those 4 missing years.
Yeah.
That was literally needed to show you, here's Zack breaking Cloud out. Now they're getting on this car. Can you imagine the game without that? I would be confused as hell. I would still think that Cloud was a Sephiroth clone.
And that's still an optional scene. I know that they were talking about moving that scene into the Medial section, when Cloud comes out of the live stream and Tifa saves him.
That would have been actually a better choice.
In a conversation between Nomura and Kitase, they were discussing the killing of Aerith, and Nomura says, if I hadn't stopped you in the second half of the game, he was planning to kill everyone but the final
parachute jump.
But everyone but the final 3 characters the player chooses.
Yeah. Which that parachute jump, it doesn't really even feel like that big of a moment because it's something I barely even remember.
Yeah.
Until I played it and I'm like, they jumped out. They parachuted? So originally, a bunch of them were supposed to be shot out of the sky?
Yeah, it reminded me of, how far are you in 10?
I am not far at all, but I know the entire story. I've seen Allie play it.
There's a sequence where they all... What are those little skateboard plates people have on the bottom of their shoes so they can grind?
Oh, and then they go on the wires and they bust up Yuna's wedding.
And Kimari doesn't have any of those shoes on, so he's just using his feet. I'm wondering.
Baby.
I wonder how they're going to parachute Ketchi down. Red 13.
I think they'll do something way more cinematic. Obviously, it might not even be like parachutes. They might just change it up and have hovercrafts or something.
I'm excited to see them expand that. They'll make a mini game out of it. That'll be its own DLC. The parachute.
So I was just thinking about something, and since we were talking earlier in the last episode about how the technology doesn't quite make sense. There are helicopters, but everyone makes a big fucking deal about the airship.
And the tiny Bronco.
Everyone makes a big fucking deal about it.
Palmer is trying to steal the tiny Bronco. You literally have helicopters everywhere.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You already have the technology. Is it just the quality of Sid's work, or
I love that the High Wind's crew, they choose to mutiny. They're like, we just thought you were cooler, Sid. We like you.
Yeah, that's something I forgot about too. They're just like, oh, you're a better captain than the last guy.
I like one of the crew members. He starts at like pilot level 1. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then you get like pilot like level 10. He's like, where are we going?
There's a lot of, especially for this, I don't know if I would have ever had paid so much attention if I hadn't been playing in service of this podcast. A lot of that stuff you just skip right the fuck over. You don't even think about it. Background detail. Funny thing about that, though, we keep talking about like little character bits. The game is infinitely a bad translation, an adaptation, if you will. Apparently, this was the game that made them really tighten their grip on localization.
It's so baffling to me that you were going to spend $40 million to put out the right product. And then at the end of the day, it's down to like 2 guys that are just making the English translation.
And, I don't blame the dudes who did it.
They're given, I'm sure they're not even able to ask questions like, all right, so wait, so Genova is this? And they can't get feedback. They're just given a script. And they're like, let's just put in jokes about being hungover and lonely. Although I'm sure with the Champagne King, that was probably something that he wrote in there. I love that a lot of different spots have like unique drinks. Like in Cosmo Canyon, you go to the bar there. They're like, would you like our signature drink, the Cosmo Candle? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want the Cosmo Candle.
Oh yeah, dude. A lot of drinking in this game.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And in a lot of ways, a lot of the Final Fantasies have like the areas where you can get fucked up. There's always a pub or an inn.
I love, you mentioned like little story beats that you kind of just notice when you're extra paying attention. There's a throwaway line when you're at the fire in Cosmo Canyon. Someone's like, this is called the Cosmo Candle. Legend has it that it went out once like a long time ago and some really bad things happened. That's all they say. I'm like, what happened?
Well, it's like because they talk a lot about the Gi tribe.
Yeah.
And is that like a signal that the Gi tribe can like move in and fuck shit up?
Yeah.
They don't explain the Gi tribe very well. Where do they live? What are they doing?
They were all stopped, except they're all trapped in a cave. I don't know.
My understanding of the Gi tribe is that they might be like a subterranean, like mole people.
I bet they're going to get a lot more expanded with the sequel part 2, remake part 2.
Yeah.
So what else do we got here? Let's talk about the release. At that time, about 95% of the revenue would come from Japan. The North American market spent more than $20 million for the release. Final Fantasy VI had only sold about 400,000 copies in America at the time.
God.
Squaresoft asked Sony not to promote it as an RPG.
One of those was Tom.
Yeah, back in the day. He might have stole it from somewhere.
Yeah, the bastard.
He hit, Final Fantasy VII hit 1 million units sold in the U.S. within 3 months.
Astonishing.
Near the end, things were just barely held together. It worked, so they didn't want to pull anything out and risk, how it is with those things.
Yeah.
So the debug room was left in, which is kind of fun. The debug room is a way where you can like jump to any part of the game.
Right.
And I've accessed it with Game Shark, and it is fun. That's the only way I've seen the Barret date is you can jump into the debug room. You can go right there. One promotion for Final Fantasy VII included a picture of Junon with the cannon, and it was captioned, "Please offer a cigarette and a blindfold to those who are still making cartridges."
Whoa.
Wow. You're referencing like killing prisoners of war here.
Sega does what Nintendo don't. Move over.
Sony fucking kills you. That's what it really says.
It's like, fuck you. That is bold. I had no idea.
Yeah, I can't believe they had a lot of aggressive promotions, but wow, that is maybe too aggressive.
No, that is so 9 Inch Nails 90s bullshit.
Yeah.
Like it makes absolute sense to me. Like all the fucking goth edgelords were probably like, this is the game for me now.
I'm not playing with a toy anymore. I'm playing with this.
Look at the size of his sword. It's basically just a hunk of metal. Oh, one thing I did read is that they might have been influenced pretty hardcore by the manga Berserk for Cloud's sword.
Yeah, I mean, they have kaiju in there with the weapons. I think that they're pulling from a lot of different.
I mean, specifically Cloud's sword. It's basically the hunk of iron that Guts uses in Berserk.
I haven't seen Berserk.
I mean, read it.
Okay.
Reading it is better than the weird adaptations they've done. But yeah, bigger, better. Bigger is always better. It's 90s all the way. It's rad to the extreme. Mountain Dew jumping.
Look at how big that fucking sword is.
I specifically remember before I even had a concept of what Final Fantasy was or even played it or touched it. I remember the advertisements and I remember being obsessed with how fucking cool just the picture of Cloud looking up at the Shinra building. I remember being on the bus and just drawing it over and over again.
So many times.
I'd never played the game, but I remember how iconic I was just like, that sword is so fucking cool. And then all my characters had gigantic ass swords or guns for arms is what I found out.
Yeah.
Well, partially because I couldn't draw hands very well, but a buddy and me in middle school, we started making jokes about how he would never, because he would draw, but he never liked drawing hands. He always thought they looked dumb. So a lot of his characters were deliberately drawn with like guns for arms.
Yeah.
And we came up later on, like probably when we were 15 or 16, about an animated TV show pitch that was called the Guns for Arms Squad. And everyone just has guns for arms. Or we came up with a character called the Raging Cajun, but his arms were just alligators. So yeah, I remember the promotions for this, and I remember like
Gator took my arm, so I made him into my hand.
Well, and my mom never really like I didn't really have access to the internet all that much, so a lot of everything I knew was word of mouth and people telling me how amazing this game was, and just like the mystery of it all. So, something like this can't exist in today's society because there are so many like game previews and like special looks and everyone follows it so closely. You can't be, I don't think you can be surprised by a video game anymore. I really don't think so.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I've been surprised by a video game.
It's interesting though that they did make an official release. Like please don't spoil a game if you're getting it early.
Right.
I think that there is going to be some surprises.
No, I mean surprises in a way that a video game just shows up out of nowhere.
I think partially the Doom 2016 was able to pull it off because they played it extremely close to the vest and because
they were worried.
And I don't know because they played it maybe like a year or two early at QuakeCon, and everyone there's like, it's the shit. Everyone should be excited. And then no one got to see that trailer. Yeah. And they even, I think, said no reviews, like no early reviews.
Oh, that's the Bethesda embargo.
Yeah, which makes sense for Fallout 76, but with like, you don't want anyone talking about that before it comes out. I think Doom actually kind of surprised people.
That one could have actually benefited from that because they could have sold a lot more right away because I don't think everyone got it.
Did you know the original version in Japan of Final Fantasy VII had way more encounters?
Oh, well, they do this. They do this for American audiences all the time. They tend to like dumb shit down because
I don't know. I'd rather just have the good shit rather than I have to fight 1,000 enemies.
So like the Final Fantasy IV that we got, it's the easiest fucking game.
So Final Fantasy II?
Yeah, 2.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, 2. The one with Cecil and Rosa and all them. Yeah. Kane's cool. Kane's rad as fuck.
We're going to play Final Fantasy Dissidia after we're done recording.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll dig it.
I'm going to be Laguna. I've never played. I haven't played.
Laguna's not in there, but
Yeah, he is.
I don't think not in this one.
He's got to be.
No, I don't think so.
Laguna's my favorite Final Fantasy character. Why is he not?
You like Laguna the most?
Laguna's my favorite.
I like
Final
Ward
Fantasy character.
Zabak because my last name is Ward.
Oh.
He has an anchor.
Yes, I know Ward.
Yeah.
Laguna, Kyros, and Ward.
Yeah. Kyros is like fucking sword arms.
Yeah, he's a fun design. I think Nomura had a great time making Kyros, especially. But Laguna, dude, what's not to like about Laguna?
Dude, I don't remember that game too much. All I remember was him dicking around and like ladies flirting with him.
Oh no, he falls in love with a piano player, and he gets like the most tragic, kind of straightforward story in all of Final Fantasy.
So back to FF7.
Yes. Sorry. Save that for the
Sakaguchi.
Yes.
As soon as FF7 was done, he wanted to move right on to filmmaking. And so he set up a production facility in Honolulu. And Squaresoft's like, whatever, dude. You're the king.
Yeah.
The budget was close to $150 million for Spirits Within. Not the initial $40 million that was pitched. rather than do common sense things like use some Hawaiian staff to get like good tax breaks, like, nope, we're going to do everything. Like, budget. What's a budget for? He's a great fucking video game producer.
Yeah.
Spirits Within critical score of 44%, audience score of 48%.
That's all told, movies do worse.
Yeah, but they don't fail so spectacularly money-wise.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, this pretty much destroyed Squaresoft. They had to team up with Enix just to survive.
Enix are at this point the Dragon Quest people.
Which, that's a great union. I'm not disappointed with that.
No, it makes complete sense.
Tetsuya Nomura described his absence as a civil war where everyone just fought for control immediately.
It really does. It does seem like it was the end of the golden age.
Video Deathloop is a podcast where we watch a short video clip on loop until we just can't take it anymore. Along the way, we'll try our best to make each other laugh and to hold out longer than the other guy. You can jump in on any episode, no need to worry about continuity. Check out Video Deathloop on the Greenlit Podcast Network with new episodes every Friday.
Hey folks, it's Asif Khan, CEO, Editor-in-Chief, over there at ShackNews.com. Give a listen to the Shackcast, the official Shack News podcast of Shack News. Over there on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
That book is one of the most poorly written books I've read in a long time.
Which one?
The Legend of Final Fantasy VII.
I
thought it was bad news.
I don't know if it's poorly written. I skipped the last half of it.
Oh, did you?
Well, I read it.
Let me see if there's an excerpt that I can.
I read it, but once it starts getting to like some like more abstract concepts, I'm over it.
It's funny because it just like the last part does feel a bit like a jerk off.
Yeah.
Like themes. Are you kidding me? Like they basically just go through like, they're like, Odin is a Norse mythology character. I'm like, come on. There's no like insight to anything, and I've read the whole damn thing. To be fair, this did explain pretty well.
The timeline is the best part of
this. I think even that's not written all that great, but in terms of giving me like a good viewpoint on all of the plot details that I missed by not, playing all the way through Dirge of Cerberus or
fucking Dirge of Cerberus
or that mobile game
Before Crisis.
Yes, thank you.
AC, BC, CC, and DC. Advent Children, Before Crisis, Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus. Because that's how you should base the titles of your games is, well, we have a few that end in C. Let's have another one.
Well, it's funny. Even in comic books, they do stuff like Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I love Kingdom Hearts 2.8 plus 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a Fragmentary Passage.
The only joke I liked in Final Fantasy or in Kingdom Hearts 3 was as you're launching in the gummy ship, it says Kingdom Hearts 2.9. And then it goes into Kingdom Hearts 3. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's very funny. Like they knew this is all Tetsuya Nomura's fault.
One of my lowlights was as soon as I got out of Midgar, you got to go to Calm and that Nibelheim flashback. I hate feeling like my character's not progressing and I have to do time battling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's important story-wise.
Very.
What's most interesting to me, though, is being able to have Sephiroth as a party member. Mm-hmm. It's fucking great. When you
9999.
He uses like Fire 3. Mm-hmm. Cloud's all like, I'm so excited to try my materia. And he has like a preemptive or something that he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he does like a 100. And then you face a dragon in the middle of the road and Sephiroth like one hits.
Yeah.
And it's dead. What's really cool, even at that point, is when you get to the place, the Chocobo stables, and you cross that really difficult place with the Midgar Stormers.
The Midgar Zolom.
Zolom, thank you.
Yeah.
And then you see one just impaled on a tree, and they're like, oh, Sephiroth did this. I'm like,
I think
the fuck?
That is one of the best moments for Sephiroth as a villain.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get over there.
Yep.
You see this snake monster, it instantly kills your party, or it sends you to the end of the swamp. You have to figure out a way around it, which includes, I have to catch a chocobo, I have to do this. And you get over there and you see Sephiroth has just fucking slaughtered it.
Yeah. It's straightforward, and it really gives you through environmental detail. It tells you and informs the story.
And I love most of the characters. They're just like shit. They're like quiet. They don't have like this big thing. And
Cloud just looks unsurprised. He's just like, Sephiroth was here. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of exciting that if you were to hack Yuffie into that part of the game, she has dialogue that was written. It's just
what does she say?
She just says, she just says, "Geez, Louise."
Jeez Louise, that's pretty good.
But it's, I mean, I could see her. They wanted her to be like a random battle even before you get to the other side of that. I liked Junon. I think not necessarily like Junon the city. That's got some fun little moments where Cloud is a soldier, but the Shinra boat. I'm a huge fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah,
and when he's getting his dirt and himself shipped over to the U.S. on the ship, and the ship just like turns into a ghost ship because there's something on the ship and nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
I love just like that gothic terror of they're stuck on this ship and then all of a sudden like Genova shows up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Sephiroth emerges out of the ground.
That is scary.
And then he flies away. And no one at this point is like, I don't know, maybe something's
maybe it's not real.
Maybe something else is going on here.
Well, we can't skip over Fort Condor, which has one of the worst minigames in the entire series.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. If they make this into like a legitimate tower defense, it could be fine.
They will.
I just appreciate,
as long as it actually works.
I appreciate the fact though that you can just skip it, like not skip it altogether, but you
have
start
to do one.
You start the fight and you just let them come up there and you can just fight the boss.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so that's how I do it. I'd much rather, I'll just fight the fucking boss.
Well, I tried to play the game like what they presented. Like I thought that would at least be, like I would try, you know, and I always tried, but like the catapults and the weird soldiers and how the whole system works, it's not well thought out.
There's too much. If they kept it a little simpler, but instead there's like 9 or 10 different things, and I'm not going to take the time to learn how to play this. You can get a couple of good items, but it's not until you actually have to do it for the Phoenix.
Have you ever played Final Fantasy VI?
Long time ago.
Well, this is basically, there is a way that you can make it feel like, especially when you have to split your party and the enemies are coming from like 3 different paths and you switch between each party, and those like it's like a maze and the enemies are coming at you and you fight them.
Yeah.
Like I could have done with another one of those. Like maybe your party gets split and you can only have 2 people in each party.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to best like handle these certain situations. That would have been great because then you would have actually had to think tactically. Mm-hmm. With this one though, it's you spend points to buy certain units, and then you set up the units, and then they kind of march in place.
And they're, even with the ×3 function, that shit's slow. I have a prediction: Yuffie will not be in the next like the remake part 2.
You think it's going to be right up until Wutai?
They're going to save her for the last one, and then she's going to steal your shit and go like you'll have to go to Wutai for that. Because also they're not going to make Wutai be optional. They're going to want you to go. They're going to figure out a time, and they're going to have Yuffie take your shit there. That way they can also have one less character to worry about developing for one more game. And I would even venture to say,
I think she'll be in the story. And I don't think she'll be playable.
I even say like make Vincent don't have him. You can't wake him up in Nibelheim right away. Maybe save him and Yuffie as characters for the last game. I mean, I think that they're going to have to pace it out because if you just get every character next game, you want to save something for the last one.
So they're obviously pulling a Mass Effect with this. Your save file is going to transfer data. Do you think it's going to be a 1-for-1 though, or are they going to give you specific benefits for each game?
They don't want to scare off new players. You're gonna you'll start out at a certain level, but you'll be able to probably carry over materia and equipment, I would venture.
Yeah, that hurts me though. Like mentally, as someone who's a huge RPG fan, if my sense of progression is being destroyed, like with Mass Effect, it's different because you're basically playing a shooting game.
Yeah.
And you're carrying over like story bits. But in an RPG, like your sense of accomplishment comes from basically numbers getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
And if those numbers don't transfer, I'm kind of pissed about that. I'll still play these games anyway, but I don't know. You were talking earlier about how you hate your sense of progression being hindered.
I'm curious how they're going to do the Nibelheim flashback. They could shorten it up quite a bit. Maybe make it just like, I don't know. Are they going to do a story recap at the beginning for people that didn't play the remake one before?
Well, another thing is obviously there's going to be a lot more battling because you're going to have to be moving Cloud around and doing more. Maybe at the end of it, Cloud's like, oh, and I forgot I have this materia that I earned a long time ago. Or like, I don't know. Because I can't do another Calm. I mean, I'm excited to see what it looks like.
I hope they just move that flashback to the Shinra Tower or something like that, like we had prior discussed. Or they could even just move it to Nibelheim, like have the flashback when you actually get to Nibelheim.
Oh.
That might ruin some motivation, but I don't know. With Sephiroth moved around to be more active earlier, we'll see.
But I think actually they might do a thing where Cloud kind of explains like, oh, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, this is how I know Tifa. Like maybe it's just little cinematics put throughout. Like there's no actual person in the world who will be like, now everyone gather around and I'm going to tell you the long sordid tale. You get details about people as time goes on.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they do something like that.
So after the ship, you get to the second continent, you get to Costa del Sol. Yuffie starts selling materia. Tifa runs into her friend Johnny. And you know what didn't piss me off, but it made me like, what the fuck? Like she's just talking with Johnny because Johnny has a place there. She's like, oh, Cloud, I'm just catching up with my friend. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Cloud's like, well, we leave early. It's like, what are you staying at Johnny's place for?
Yeah.
Johnny's probably having like, holy shit, Tifa's here?
Yeah.
We drinking?
Yeah.
This is a little story beat I missed before that fucking blew me away. So, a woman on the beach. She goes, oh, that's right. It totally skipped my mind. There was something I was supposed to tell you. That's right. It's about that. It was yesterday. A man wearing a black cloak came up from the ocean. Sephiroth, after he leaves the ship, walks on the ocean and he walks up.
Oh, I forgot.
But listen to this next thing she says. I think he had tickets to the Gold Saucer.
Oh, my God. Okay.
It's like, wow.
People are really not taking life seriously in these games.
What? She sees this guy walk up and he just has like tickets to the Gold Saucer sitting out of his pocket.
I think he had tickets to Gold Saucer, and Sephiroth's like, I'm going to play. I'm going to play
G-Bike.
I'm going to score some massive 3-pointers in the basketball minigame. Dun, 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 dun. Swoosh.
1 GP? Fuck.
Damn it. How am I ever going to afford?
I also like that Hojo is just on the beach chilling. In his lab coat still. He's not wearing like summer attire, but he's there.
Well, truly, this is where the game, it doesn't fall apart to me. It's just, for such like serious story content, like I'm glad they had moments of levity, but a part of me is like, what is this, a fucking anime? Good God.
Yeah.
The villain, the one who like fucking Nazi doctor.
Hojo is one of the main driving factors for the entire expanded universe too. Like it's his fault most of this shit happens.
Yeah.
Although every scientist apparently would immediately start injecting Genova into everything if they could.
So after that, it's what then?
Well, then you go to Mount Coral. Barret sees little birds. There's train tracks that you just fall down, like that little mini game, like
the cart riding.
You can move left or right, whatever. I really like what they do next, though, where you enter North Coral and you just see a destroyed village. They assault Barret pretty much, and you just feel
and he takes it.
And he doesn't.
Like, he feels so bad.
Like, I deserve this, and you feel this major just despair from this village. Cut to the Gold Saucer song. I love the disparity that it just kind of highlights for the universe. Barret runs away immediately as he is quite distraught. It's time to just go explore the Gold Saucer a little bit. I'm excited for the remake. The remake Gold Saucer is going to be baller. It's going to have a
lot of good games in and of itself. Yeah.
It's going to be great, and I'm excited.
They have to, because if they don't make that part entertaining, it's over for them.
Enter the one character that every Final Fantasy has. That one character that you're just like, I don't understand what the fuck this is about.
What's happening? Yeah,
Ketchi.
As
I pronounced it, Cait Sith back in the day, and it's interesting to note to this point, there's never been any official Final Fantasy media where it's said out loud. But
it's based
Ketchi
off
is it's like a Scottish mythological cat thing.
Yeah.
He gives you your fortune. His official job title is Toysaurus. He's a fortune-telling anthropomorphic stuffed cat that rides in a robotic Moogle.
Called Moogie.
who Reeve fucks.
Yes. More cushion for the pushin'.
It's interesting to note this is the third version of Ketchi. There's 2 prior. One was killed before Crisis. Dude, I don't understand what's going on here because he's controlled by Reeve, or it's controlled by Reeve. So initially you're imagining this guy at a computer screen doing something.
Or a joystick or something.
But that's not the case because you find out later that Reeve is able to sit next to Ketchi and they can talk to each other. I guess he has a special magic called Inspire, Reeve. And so it's partially like magically controlled.
It makes sense in universe, I guess.
But at this point, why would you have a cat riding Moogie when you could just have Moogie?
Moogie would be way better. That's the one doing all the punching and shit anyway.
And if you're able to just do something, why not make a 10 times bigger Moogie?
Yes.
You could do anything.
You could do anything. You could even have, I don't know, make like a robot of one of the monsters that exists within the world.
I don't know. The possibilities are endless. But he rides a robotic Moogle. So Moogie doesn't really have a personality.
No, he's basically like the vehicle for Ketchi.
He can look sad, the Moogle and Ketchi.
Yeah.
But it's still just baffling.
I really wish they in the books that we read, I wish they had talked more about that because it is super out of left field. Even the weird characters in the other Final Fantasies, they kind of makes sense.
Quina
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Quina is a fantastic character.
I'm excited for Final Fantasy 9 in 2 years. We'll do a Final Fantasy every year unless we want to do like a special tactics episode.
We would do tactics.
Crystal Chronicles. When they do the re-release for Switch, we're fucking beating that game.
I'm a huge Crystal Chronicles fan.
Do you play it on the GameCube?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We got a group of 4 of us together with our Game Boy Advances hooked up.
I never got to do that.
Oh, man, that was the shit.
I didn't have a ton of friends.
Well, you got at least one now.
Well, at least, I mean, like, as long as there's a Moogle carrying the fucking chalice, I don't care.
Okay, so Reeve's special ability is Inspire. It allows him to cause inorganic things to emit life. His child, he considers Cait Sith his child, can be controlled from a great distance. That's what we know. Ketchi forces himself on the party, and we're stuck with him. And then
It's really weird they accept him right away.
No questions.
It's really fucked, actually.
And then shortly afterwards, like, it seems like there's a spy here. And Ketchi's like, oh, great, I'm the new guy. Everyone's going to blame me.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Someone with a gun grafted to his arm starts slaughtering people in the gold saucer. Well, and it's like, Barret.
Yeah.
You got a gun on your arm.
It's true.
You are sent down into Coral Prison, which I didn't realize back in the day that Coral Prison is actually the village where Coral was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like the village where Barret kind of discusses his past.
Yeah.
That's the same, like you can see it in the cutscene where they're discussing what they want to do with the city.
Their final confrontation is by Dine's old house.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Barret's loyalty mission.
Barret's loyalty mission. That is the way to put it. Yes.
Every character kind of has a little loyalty mission to an extent. And this is where, Barret's character his character arc, it ends here to a big extent. Otherwise, I'm not saying he's not a great guy to have around because I enjoy watching him cuss.
He's still motivated and he's still like his goal is ultimately unattained. So his character arc still has weight.
Near the end, he decides, he's like, I don't care about this anymore. I'm doing this for Marlene now. I'm like, all right, well, you round it out a little bit. Even Ketchi calls him out near the end of the game. He's like, I wanted to say this for a while. You fuckers killed a lot of people with what you did back then, and no one's called you out for it. I'm like, good.
They deserve it too. Like when you can't throw around the word terrorist lightly.
And the original Avalanche was with Coral.
I know.
We're not going to talk about that, but
no, we are not.
Barret essentially agreed that they wanted to get a Mako reactor and that coal wasn't the way of the future anymore. They wanted to go to Mako.
Yeah.
Something happened and the Mako reactor destroyed the village.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was like a nuclear meltdown.
This is one of Scarlet's only real character beats besides her like bitch slap fight. Because her character is pretty weak overall in the original game.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were running away, and as the guys she's the one who grabs a gun that shoots Barret's arm off, and and essentially shoots Stein. And Barret feels responsible for the death of his village. the death of his best friend, the death of his wife, Moira, something like that. He finds out, though, that Dine is alive. The only other person to get a gun grafted onto his arm.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But it's the other hand.
It's his wow.
And he has more like a sniper rifle grafted.
I was excited. I thought Dine was going to join the party the first time I played this.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, he was psycho. I knew it. I knew he was going to die. Well, you eventually knock some sense into him, but Dine still decides to commit suicide.
He's like, oh, my daughter's still alive. Yeah, and Barret's like, come on, dude, let's go see her.
It's fine. Let's go back to Marlene. Yeah.
He's like, nah, dude, peace. Well, and Dine, when he hears that initially, he's like, I'm going to kill her so she can go back to being with her mom.
Oh, boy.
He's off the deep end a little bit. And then Dio, the manager of the Gold Saucer, afterwards, is like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But this, actually, you have to win a chocobo race first.
Yeah.
From
and then
Esther.
and then you get your Bahamut materia.
Is it?
Or no, it's Ifrit.
No, it's the one after Ifrit, but it wasn't Bahamut yet.
Oh, it's Ramu.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's Ramu.
Dio's like, yeah, I know I'm only wearing a thong because that's what I do, but here's a buggy, sorry.
A buggy.
He gives you the buggy.
Yeah, the 6-wheel buggy.
It's cool that Gungaga Village is optional. It's just a tiny village that was destroyed by a Mako reactor. This is where Zack Fair is from. Mm-hmm. It's weird that if you take Tifa or Eris or both of them into Zack Fair's house, they both seem to know Zack rather than just Eris.
Yeah.
Maybe Tifa banged him at some point.
Maybe. She had that cute little cowboy outfit.
Giddy up.
Yeah, I swear to God.
It's funny that the Turks are there and you get this feeling like we think there's a spy. Is it the robotic cat that joined us?
I wonder.
No, it's probably the people that have been here since the beginning. Mm-hmm. Cosmo Canyon. It doesn't have to, but your buggy can break down outside of there. Cosmo Canyon's fucking awesome.
Cosmo Canyon rules.
Cosmo Canyon rules. The fact that they have a giant fire outside that always burns, I would sit there every night.
Oh, yeah, dude. I miss bonfires right now. I'm thinking about just starting one right out in the streets. No one's going to stop me.
Something that I love about, how do you say it? Do you say Bugenhagen? Bugenhagen? Bugenhagen. One thing I love about his character, he's part of this ecological, nature aware, cognizant,
he's like
village.
A spiritual scientist.
But he's also all about science. When he gets on the Highwind later, he's like, this shit's awesome.
Yeah. He's got a little hover chair too.
He's got a planetarium. Mm-hmm. He actually used to work for Shinra, but he left that, which is kind of interesting.
I mean, if you wanted to do anything, probably back in the day, you had to go through Shinra, so it makes absolute sense.
Yeah, at one point in Cosmo Canyon, Ketchi is wondering when we're going to have dinner. You're a stuffed fucking cat. What's wrong with you?
I know.
It's probably just Reeve just spacing out, talking still.
Yeah, he forgot to put his ramen in the microwave.
Oh, here's where we learn that Nanaki is actually just a child.
Yes. Like a child for his age.
Yep.
50-something?
Yeah, he's 50 or 60, but he's actually a teenager, technically.
Yeah.
Bugenhagen is 130 years old.
Yes, he is.
And probably the smartest dude in the world. I think he actually might have been the one to start Avalanche, or it's Fujito, before Crisis stuff. But Avalanche was started there, and I think he might have been involved. This is Nanaki's loyalty mission.
He hates his dad for perceivedly being a coward.
Because he ran away.
But then, at the end, you find out he didn't run away. He became a statue, man.
And he cried.
And then he cried. And then that's actually a very emotionally powerful moment in the video game.
Because it's got that awesome Cosmo Canyon music. Red 13 or Nanaki,
he howls.
He howls and it pans up to the moon. I'm like, I just got chills thinking about it now.
I know, I did too. And then the tear rolls down and you're just like, so wait, he's alive in there? That's crazy.
Yeah. And then Lucrezia cries later too. Lucrezia.
Oh yeah. And
everyone just cries when they're
people
frozen.
Love to cry.
Yeah. There's not a ton of interesting things about the boss battles. It's usually just a bigger HP bank with some different attacks. Some have a little nuance, but I do appreciate the old tried and true trick of an undead enemy just using one Phoenix down, because you can beat the boss in the G Cave with a Phoenix down.
Yep. I've done that many a time. It's not worth it to just deal with it. Yeah.
Cosmo Canyon's cool though.
It's rad.
It's rad. Yeah, the next spot that we stop is Nibelheim.
You get there and things are amiss.
Turns out Evan's mom, President Rufus's illegitimate brother, is living there, taking care. Okay, sorry, we'll save that for the next episode. But
the town has been rebuilt.
Rebuilt completely accurately.
Yes, and the people living there are basically Shinra workers.
Yeah, they were.
And they're all paid to just hang out.
We're not going to acknowledge something happened. Everyone just hang out and pretend everything's
It's like,
fine.
this is how it's always been. We've all lived here before. And then, especially like Cloud's like, what?
I don't know.
Tifa's like, Cloud, what the hell's going on? And everyone else is just like, this is fucking weird.
It's interesting that expanded universe stuff, Nibelheim, that was just like essentially kind of finished and rebuilt shortly before they got there. Because Evan's mom from The Turks Are All Right.
Oh, okay.
She left there shortly after Sector 7 fell. And so, like, that's it. That must have just gotten that shit together. Even when it was only 30 days that all of this happened, allegedly, in the timelines.
I imagine they could do it quickly.
It must have just happened. Like, they had time to build the city, but people populating it just got there. Yeah, it's strange.
You got all the money in the world.
It's strange. You can go into Cloud's house and Tifa's house. And this is when you start seeing a lot of the hooded tattooed figures.
Yeah, the weird shambling mounds.
Shambling, bambling. People that'll just give you random items. Sure, thanks.
It's like, all right, you have a phoenix down. That's weird.
Yeah. I wonder how they're going to be portrayed in the remake. Because they can't just have like a big old black mass.
They could. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they kind of look like they have Sephiroth's face shape or something.
Yeah, they all look like Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo.
Yes. Those guys.
Those guys. One of my favorite locations, probably in the game, the Shinra Mansion.
Really cool.
Shit's
design.
very cool.
Yeah, that place rules.
That place was built before the rest of the city.
Yep.
As just like a spot for them to get to the reactor.
Yep.
Some really cool enemy designs in there. I like the little mystery of having to open the safe.
Oh, I love the safe. That's where you get Odin.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's where you get Odin.
Okay.
You can get him pretty early. The boss battle is a little bit difficult.
Odin's always one of my favorite summons.
Odin's fantastic because he's like I
just like
sometimes
the design.
he's a one-hit kill.
I just like the design.
Oh yeah, with his
six-legged horse.
It's called Sleipnir.
Yes, sleep near me, Dylan.
Slept near me.
It's actually, though, beating Lost Number at the level you probably are at this game, if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a pretty tough battle.
Yeah, if you keep everyone's HP above a certain level, you're usually fine. You just have to juggle a lot of magic. That's really where the difficulty comes from. But if you have the right stuff equipped to people and you've been doing any grinding, it is possible.
If you're smart enough to get Big Guard.
Yeah.
Big Guard is a enemy skill technique you get right around there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those things, though, the enemy won't use it on you unless you manipulate them to use that, which is something I wasn't aware of. But Big Guard will get you through anything. And this is where it's your first opportunity to meet Vincent Valentine. Whatever. He is a vampire, not vampire.
He's basically like a person housing the chaos energy.
That's Dirge of Cerberus, but you're right. They don't really get too far into it.
No, they don't.
Yeah, in this, because
he's kind of like a werewolf too.
His character was legitimately added very last second.
Yeah.
And that's why his dialogue, there's not a lot of character to it. Apart from Hojo and Lucrezia's cave, there's not a lot unique that he does, but his character's limit breaks. He can turn into a chainsaw-wielding zombie dude, like a Frankenstein's monster guy.
Yeah.
And straight up chaos, which just looks like Satan.
I love it.
Yeah. And I guess originally his character, they were thinking about having him be like a paranormal detective researcher.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I'm like, fuck yeah.
Why not?
And then at some point, his character would just start turning the demons, and he wouldn't know why. I'm like, and they were also thinking where after he would turn into a demon, he would stay as a demon. And like his dialogue would be different depending on what demon he was turning into at the time.
That's a little complicated.
It's a little complicated. But essentially, Hojo did experiments on him. We know this much. Mm-hmm. He has a grudge against Hojo. He used to be a Turk. And the reason he joins the party is to chase after Hojo. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of expanded lore with Vincent after the fact.
We're not doing that today.
Not today, but for where we are, that's what's going on.
He does get his revenge. His revenge.
If you bring him, you don't even have to bring him there.
I always do. Mm-hmm. He deserves his revenge.
He deserves it. I also like to bring Nanaki there, too. Remember Red 13? That's me, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone he experimented on. So it should just be a party of Cloud, Red, and Vincent.
You run into Sephiroth, Genova, whatever you want to call it, down in the mansion.
Yes.
I love his way of, he like calls you out. I don't know what he says to you. He lies to you again about this or that.
You are a puppet. He kind of hints, he does hint at you. He's like, isn't it a little strange how your life has been going right now?
Yeah, he calls him out. He says there's going to be a reunion, and then he throws a materia at you. And then
he flies and he drops a materia.
Oh, okay.
I remember it being that way. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I forget what materia it even is, though. It's a summon, right?
I think it's a good one. I think it's a summon, yeah.
I can't remember which one, though.
Hojo is Sephiroth's father.
Biologically, yeah.
Biologically. This fucking lunatic injects his pregnant wife with Genova cells.
And Lucrezia seemed pretty level-headed. I wonder why she even allowed that. I feel like that's kind of like an afterthought. They didn't really give her a lot of character motivation.
Not for the first game, but I have a feeling that the research she was doing on chaos and that materia is involved for sure.
Probably.
Yeah, and she's the reason that Vincent's dad died, which is why she like resisted some of his advances. She felt guilty about that.
Yeah. Grimoire Valentine?
Yeah. Whoa. He wears a fucking like red trench coat. Fuck off.
I just had to say his name because it's like, I'm like, Grimoire Valentine. Jesus Christ.
I wanted to love Vincent my last playthrough, and I didn't.
You didn't?
His dialogue is not interesting.
No.
And
I like how he plays.
I hate his limit break. I like that he can be...
I love how weird it is.
Well, it's just not as effective.
No, it's not as good as like Tifa's, or it's definitely... It's not as like bombastic as Barret's.
It's just... I don't like that you lose control of him for the rest of the battle.
Yeah, it's basically a berserk spell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool, though. I made sure to have Chaos ready for the fight with Hojo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, little did we know that Hojo would digitize his consciousness and become Nero Weiss in the deep ground. But we cross Mount Nibel. The only thing I put that is cool here is that the materia from your flashback that you looked at with Sephiroth, you can actually go there and the materia is ready to grab now, which is kind of fun. You get to Rocket Town. Fuck, I think he's my favorite character. He's got some flaws,
Sid, really?
but I love Sid.
I never really stopped to think about my favorite character in this game. That's a rough one.
He's got the most interesting things to say anyways.
He does.
And I found myself wanting to bring Ketchi around because I was just like, what is going on here? What would Reeves' opinion be on a lot of this?
Right.
Rocket Town is pretty cool. I like it.
It's an interesting area. You see the tilted rocket on the corner. It's almost immediately like attention grabbing. It's a really small little town though, built around. It reminds me of like Cape Canaveral. President
Rufus is going to be visiting there, and Sid is hoping it is to start up the rocket program again so he can go to outer space. The group wants to grab the tiny Bronco.
Yeah.
Because at this point, we're not sure. Like we followed Sephiroth over to Rocket Town.
They needed a way to get across the ocean.
Yeah. Do they know it's to go to the Temple of the Ancients yet? I'm not for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bugenhagen tells them.
Oh, yeah.
You need to get to here because this will give you the answers you need, blah, blah, blah.
The great Bugenhagen. Yeah, you learn a little bit about Sid. He yells at his wife, verbally assaults her, says
they're married?
His partner. They don't get married yet. They get married later.
Oh, okay.
But he cusses at her, demands some goddamn tea.
He like threatens to hit her a lot.
He's a bad person.
He's
a bad guy. And again, you know how Barret puts up with the abuse he gets. She puts up with her abuse because she feels guilty for botching what was going to be the rocket launch earlier because she wanted to make sure the oxygen tank was fixed because the original Avalanche is the one who sabotaged it if you played before Crisis.
Oh, fuck off.
Fuck off. But
for real.
And you find out later on that the oxygen tank actually was botched.
And then Sid's like, oh, fuck.
I've been a dick for a long. I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, what a prick, yeah.
And here's probably the lamest boss battle where you fight Palmer. How this guy can even hang is amazing. What's great, though, is the boss battle ends with him getting hit by a fucking truck.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I hope he gets, like, permanently crippled.
Yeah. I don't know if we see too much of him after this.
No, you don't really. They forget about a lot of characters in this game, too, after a while.
Even Sung at the Temple of the Ancients, a lot of people just assumed he was dead because that's the last time you see him and he's hurt. And
He didn't die?
Did you not watch Advent Children?
He's alive in Advent Children?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Did you watch this?
How would he be? Yeah, I know. I've seen the movie like a million times.
He wasn't killed. He was just hurt grievously.
How does he escape the temple before it is like shrunk?
He's on the outside of the temple. He's right at the outside of the temple. Oh. I think so. But he gets out of there. Don't worry about it.
I guess so.
Yeah, you escape on the tiny Bronco, it gets shot down, so now you have the worst vehicle probably in Final Fantasy.
The worst propeller boat.
It's interesting, I guess.
It's kind of cute, actually. It's
Sid decides he's going to join. He's like, oh, a bunch of numbskulls like you think you can fight Shinra. I guess I'll tag along.
Well, he's going to be a fugitive anyway, so.
Good for him.
Yeah, might as well. Oh, my God. And then, yeah, you go to the Temple of the Ancients.
Well, if you want, you can do the Wu-Tai thing here. It's just good to get out of the way.
Yes. Oh, my God. We had the exact same thought. It's like, get it out of the way. You've got Yuffie in your party. You might as well get that story beat. She runs around.
I guess it's interesting enough. I like that she cripples your party.
Yeah.
It's cool having to just resort to items and attacking again.
Yeah.
And like the boss battle there, yeah, you run around Wu-Tai. It's actually kind of confusing because you don't know where you're supposed to go next. I like the Turks are there, and they're kind of they say they're on vacation, but they're not. But they don't fuck with you, which is nice.
Maybe they were then.
No, they were there looking for Corneo.
Oh, okay.
They were after that guy. Yeah, I think that's probably the most interesting thing about Wu-Tai is Corneo shows up and he captures Elena, the newest Turk, and Yuffie, and somehow he's still doing his fucking gross hip gyrating movements. And yeah, and
sick.
You team up with the Turks. He gets knocked off of a cliff or knocked off of the Dachau cliffside or whatever they call it.
Sending his
raps, he calls it.
Raps, yeah. He comes up with the dumbest names.
Yeah. And that's the last you see of him until when he shows up in The Turks Are All Right, A Turk Side Story, The Kids Are All Right, whatever that is. Check it out. His appearance in there is very cool. And that was Wu-Tai. Well, actually, let's finish Yuffie's loyalty mission there while we're there. The Pagoda.
Oh, the Pagoda.
You have to fight the 5 bosses.
I don't do that until later. That's a difficult fight.
We'll get to it later then. This is a kind of an odd moment, though, because you have to just go to the weapon seller east of Gungaga. It's not clear why you should, but it's just one of the locations you can go to.
Right.
And this guy just mentions that he sold Dio a key to the Temple of the Ancients. So this is why you return to the Gold Saucer.
Yes.
Okay, and the Gold Saucer. I do like that name.
What's really... It seems that there are a lot of themes of things, the thing above and the thing below. And it's just kind of it mimics Midgar a little in that way.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the squares here in the Gold Saucer. The Speed Square, this is the one where you can do that little like shooting game, which doesn't play good.
No.
It doesn't play good. It's cool that they included it. I'm sure it'll be good in the remake.
Yeah.
The Round Square, which I don't even know, that's the one where you can ride on the gondola.
Okay.
The Event Square.
Yes, where they hold like the plays.
The plays. You have Chocobo Square where you race, Battle Square where you fight in the arena, and Wonder Square where it's just all the little games.
And then there's the Inn, which is all like
which is what I wanted
themed.
to bring up next.
Yes,
man, that the Ghost Square is fucking cool.
It's interesting to say the least. It's the most memorable.
Yeah, so you wind up staying at the Gold Saucer. This is when a character decides to go on a date with you. Barret.
Hey,
Want to hang out and maybe like go see some amusement stuff together? Barret is the date that you don't get to do any like the stage play.
No, yeah.
You don't get to do that with him, but yep, the starting values for the date mechanics. Eris starts at 50, Tifa starts at 30, Yuffie starts at 10, and Barret starts at 0. Every little thing you're doing is going to be affecting little point values here and there. But you stay in the Ghost Hotel because Ketchi says, I have friends here. We can stay there. There's
you
one
believe him.
You can talk to like one of like the little plant ghost things there, and it has Kefka's laugh, which is a nice little touch. That was good. That was really good.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, during the date though, it's fun that Yuffie gives you a kiss and Cloud doesn't move, and she gets really pissed about it.
Oh yeah, it's weird. It's weird that they offered her as a romance option.
Yeah, I found her character mostly annoying. Kind of just young and petulant.
A little too young.
A little annoying. Well,
if you go
on a date with Barret, he's like, "You don't like Marlene, do you?" It's like, dude, she's like 5.
Yeah, she's fucking what she's like 7 in that?
Something like that. I don't know. But during your date, Ketchi, you see Ketchi running around with the keystone because you've got that. You won it from the battle arena with Dio.
Yeah.
And he betrays you and gives it to a Shinra helicopter.
I'm sorry.
And then he threatens Marlene's life. He's like, "You're going to keep me around because, sorry, we have Barrett's daughter."
That's so weird because wasn't Reeve against them to begin with, kind of?
Shinra. Or against... Well, yeah, but he's still working with them. He hasn't committed yet to the party.
I guess.
This fucking Ketchi, though, you have to keep him.
It's like, and he keeps talking. He keeps yammering. I remember being so annoyed with him.
The Temple of the Ancients. I'm excited for this in the remake.
That'll be interesting because of all like the weird MC Escher type of shit you've got going on.
Like, I mean, they're going to add some weird puzzles. This is going to be, I think, one of the most substantial, like, cool dungeons in
I think so too.
Yeah. And I imagine this. I mean, I think remake the second part of the remake is going to get through Eris's death.
Yeah. Well,
and then they can save Wutai and some stuff for like
that's an excellent game
for the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you get to have a boss battle, Eris dies, and then you have this huge like WTF moment there. But Temple of the Ancients, it's fun. It's kind of difficult to figure your way around there. Sephiroth emerges in the temple and he reveals he wants to join with the life stream to attain the knowledge of the planet. And that he wants to kill everyone to obtain their knowledge. He wants to kill everyone so all their knowledge in the life stream and he obtains it as well. And you fight a demon wall, which is one of my favorite Final Fantasy boss types.
Yes, I mean it's almost in every single one.
My favorite iteration is the FF12 one because it actually like is coming towards you and you might not beat it before it like runs into you.
Oh, it's all active, like it doesn't move incrementally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I saw Ali actually play that one.
Yeah, and Sephiroth really explains what's going on. He wants to summon Meteor to damage the planet to gather all the life stream there. He believes that he will evolve into a god who can control the life stream.
And then he'll basically ride the planet into outer space and become the next Genova.
I like it.
It's a good plan.
It's pretty cool.
It's rad.
Yeah. Eris discovers that the temple itself is the black materia. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this is... When everyone talks about that shocking moment in Final Fantasy VII, it's when Ketchi sacrifices himself.
Yeah. Actually, that was pretty heartwarming.
The death of a major character. No one saw this coming, and that's why everyone has been trying to revive Ketchi for years.
I know. That poor little bastard.
Ketchi.
Giant vehicle creature.
He realizes he does have a purpose.
I can do it. Oh.
And it is odd that he does have like a monologue there talking about how he's important and people aren't going to forget me. And the thing is, when you take the materia...
When you think about it, Reeve is a very sad person.
It's like, you just go out yourself and just talk to people, man. He's like, I have a cat.
It's very weird.
I have Moogie. Moogie the Moogle.
He just cries because he lost his fuck doll.
No.
That was my favorite one.
Yeah, Moogie and Ketchi, they shrink down. He dies.
He basically gets compressed down to the atomic level.
I love it. Fuck
It's so cool that the temple itself is the black materia. That's a pretty rad concept.
If you want to take it somewhere, you're going to have to sacrifice something. And that's what they do. Yeah. Cloud gets the black materia. Sephiroth forces him to hand it over because I guess the Genova cells inside him are still being able to be manipulated.
In the Northern Crater, yeah. Well, no, we skipped over Eris's death.
No. That happens up north at the city of the Ancients, the Forgotten Capital.
Oh, right.
This is still at the Temple of the Ancients. He hands it over. Cait Sith shows up. Cait Sith Volume 4, although he says it's number 2 here because they didn't know what they were doing.
Clearly.
And Cloud passes out. Now, for the exciting conclusion to our Final Fantasy VII trilogy, for the third disc of this podcast, you're going to have to go to Patreon. There's going to be available at the $3 range.
In these times, we might make it more available to people.
Yeah, but if you want to have the exciting conclusion, we're going to cover the compilation, the extended lore, as well as the rest of Final Fantasy VII from Eris's death up through the end.
This is when the story gets goofy.
This is, goofy. You can get it on Patreon, so just go there. We'd really appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
You can, if you've listened this far, that means you probably don't hate us. If you have the time, write us a review. We think, we know it would be a huge help to us. Mm-hmm. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. We appreciate that you're listening to us.
During this time especially, I think Brad will probably agree with me in saying we just want to make something fun that people can kind of forget about their issues for a little bit. Think about video games, man.
What would Cait Sith do?
Cait Sith would sacrifice himself and get atomized.
And speaking of Scottish accent, you can find us on Twitter at Hot Dogcast, Facebook and Instagram, Hair the Dogcast. We're the Raw Dogs. We're Big Tex and Old Papa B Rad.
Old Papa B.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, if you want the third part of this episode, check us out on Patreon. It's seriously, it's going to cost you like a couple of bucks.
It's also a way that you can see the great video content Brad has been producing.
There's going to be a lot of special things coming to Patreon.
I think so.
So definitely check that out. Yeah, otherwise we'll be back in 2 weeks for the conclusion of our BioWare series. We'll be talking about Dragon Age and Mass Effect, and you won't want to miss those because those are my favorite BioWare games anyways.
Well, and we have some great guests, so.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Dylan, you have anything else?
No, man. Just if you need to get in contact with me, go to the Crossroads. I'll show up and we can duel fiddles. And if you win, I'll get you a fiddle made of gold.
This is Raw Dogs. Goodbye.
You have got to be shitting me.
Nope. We're a lot less likely to get caught this way.
Another day, another struggle. Climbing stairs, so much trouble.